6 months ago, a friend and I decided to go deep camping. I mean really deep, into the wilderness. The kind of place where your phone is just a useless brick, completely off the grid. Our plan was to escape the noise of the city, find some peace, and just reconnect with nature. We found this old, rustic cabin, miles from any road, and it felt like the perfect spot. The first day and night were exactly what we'd hoped for. We hiked, built a fire, told stories, and just enjoyed the absolute silence. The stars were incredible out there, with no city lights to wash them out. The night was peaceful, filled with the gentle sounds of the forest crickets, the rustling of leaves, the occasional hoot of an owl. We went to bed feeling relaxed and completely at ease. Everything was perfect. But that all changed on the second night. That's when I heard it. It started around 3 in the morning. I woke up suddenly, not because of a bad dream, but because of a sound. A sound I had never heard before and hoped to never hear again. It was this heavy, muffled breathing. A deep, guttural inhale and exhale, slow and deliberate. At first, my groggy mind thought it might be my friend. I turned my head slowly, my heart starting to thump a little faster. But no, he was fast asleep in his sleeping bag across the room, breathing softly and evenly. This sound was different. It was loud, and it was close, chillingly close. It was coming from right outside our cabin door. It sounded like a massive person, or something even larger, was standing just inches from the wood, pressing its face against it, and just breathing. The air in the cabin felt instantly colder, heavier. Every instinct I had was screaming that something was terribly wrong. I was completely frozen, lying there in the pitch black, my eyes wide open, staring at the door. I didn't dare move a muscle. I didn't even want to breathe myself, afraid that any sound I made would alert whatever was out there to my presence. The only light in the entire cabin was this tiny, faint sliver coming from underneath the door, a pale crack of moonlight. I fixated on that strip of light, watching, waiting for a shadow to pass, for the silhouette of feet to appear. But there was nothing. No shadow, movement. Just that relentless, heavy breathing. It felt like an eternity. The sound was so resonant, I could almost feel the vibrations through the wooden floor. It wasn't an animal sound I recognized. Not a bear, not a deer, not anything I could logically explain. The sheer weight of its presence was suffocating. I felt like I was being watched by something ancient and malevolent. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was somehow even more terrifying. My ears were ringing, straining to hear anything, any sign that the thing had left. But the silence was absolute. And then a new sound began. It was a faint scratching, light, deliberate scraping against the outside of the door. It wasn't the sound of an animal clawing to get in. It was more methodical, more precise. It was a dry, scraping sound, like a sharp rock being dragged across old, weathered wood. The rhythm was strange. It would scratch for a few seconds, pause, and then start again in a different spot. It wasn't frantic. It felt intentional. It sounded like it was trying to write something, to carve a message. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Who or what would be out here, in the middle of nowhere, scratching at our door? The scratching continued for what felt like hours. Though it was probably only a few minutes, every scrape sent a shiver down my spine. My friend was still asleep, completely oblivious to the horror unfolding just a few feet away. Part of me wanted to wake him, to have someone else share this terror, but another part of me was too scared to make a sound. I just lay there, praying for it to stop, praying for the sun to rise. Eventually, the scratching ceased. Complete silence returned. I stayed awake for the rest of the night, my eyes glued to that door, not sleeping a wink. As the first hint of dawn finally broke through the darkness, painting the sky in shades of gray and orange, I felt a small wave of relief. The world outside started to feel a little less menacing with the coming light. As soon as it was bright enough to see, I shook my friend awake. I whispered frantically, telling him what I'd heard. He looked at me like I was crazy at first, thinking I'd just had a nightmare. But when he saw the genuine fear in my eyes, he started to take me seriously. We both crept towards the door, our hearts pounding. I hesitated for a moment before unlocking it, half expecting something to be waiting for us on the other side. Taking a deep breath, We swung the door open and rushed outside, scanning the area around the cabin. There was nothing there. No footprints, no broken branches, no sign that anyone or anything had been there at all. It was just the quiet, peaceful forest, waking up with the morning sun. My friend was about to dismiss the whole thing, but then I pointed to the door, and we both froze. There, on the wooden surface, were fresh, deep scratches. They were exactly where I'd heard the sound coming from. And it wasn't just a random jumble of marks. They were shaped into crude, broken letters. It was almost like a child had tried to carve something with a sharp object. We stared at them, trying to decipher what they said. The letters were jagged and incomplete, but we could just make out a name. It was my name, my full first name, carved into the door of a cabin in the middle of nowhere. My blood ran cold. How could this be possible? We were so far off the grid. We hadn't seen another soul for 2 days. We hadn't told anyone our exact location, not even our families. We'd picked this spot on a map at random. There was no logical way for anyone or anything to know we were here, let alone to know my name. My friend, who had been skeptical just moments before, was now just as pale as I was. We stood there in stunned silence, the morning air feeling icy against our skin. All the peace and beauty of the wilderness had vanished, replaced by a deep and settling dread. We didn't even talk about it. We just looked at each other, and we both knew we had to get out of there immediately. We threw our gear into our backpacks in a frantic rush, not even bothering to pack neatly. We didn't make breakfast. We didn't have another sip of water. We just grabbed our things and ran. We didn't look back at the cabin. We half walked, half ran the miles back to our car, constantly looking over our shoulders, feeling watched the entire way. The forest no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like a trap, and every shadow seemed to hold a lurking figure. We didn't stop until we were back in the car, doors locked, engine roaring. We drove for hours, not speaking. The image of those scratches burned into our minds. We never went back, and we've never been deep camping since. The experience changed something for both of us. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can still hear that heavy, muffled breathing in my memory, and I still have the photo I took of the door that morning. I look at it from time to time, just to remind myself that it was real. The question that haunts me to this day is not what was outside that cabin. The terrifying question is, how did it know my name? It's a question I don't think I'll ever have an answer to, and maybe I don't want one. Thanks for listening to my story. Be careful out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true encounters.